Hey, guys. All right. Hey, thank you all for coming out and hearing me speak. I just wanted to applaud the last speaker. Juju's presentation was really fantastic. Thank you. My name's Ben Pfeiffer. I'm the founder of Firefly Conservation and Research. It's a conservation organization that's devoted to protecting fireflies and its habitats. I study Texas fireflies specifically. Tonight, I'm going to take you on a very nerdy talk about fireflies here in Texas. I'm going to do something really cool tonight that I normally don't get to do in presentations, which is talk about some DNA research and kind of go on a little journey with you all. My hope tonight is that you'll be able to identify some firefly species that you might see in your backyard or if you go on a nature hike. What we're going to go ahead and do is I do like to kind of create the presentation a little interactive. So if you've got a burning question you want to ask me, feel free to raise your hand in the middle, and we'll go ahead and try to answer it. Unless, just save it to the end for the question and answer period. So let's go ahead and get started. Fireflies. What are fireflies? Well, they are beetles. Depending upon where you live, they go by a lot of different names. Lightning bugs, fireflies, that glowy thing over there, whatever you want to call them. They all belong to what's called the family Lampyridae. Now, I have a question for the audience. Has anybody seen fireflies recently? Yeah? Okay, show of hands. Who's seen fireflies? All right, so that's really cool. So here's a cool fact about Texas. We've actually got 2 seasons of fireflies. Fireflies in the spring and then also fireflies in the fall, and we can see them until about the end of October. So it's really cool that y'all are seeing them now. We have years where we don't have a good fall season. Has anybody seen a lot of fireflies or just a few? Just a few? Yeah, that makes sense for about fall. Well, if you're a firefly and you belong to the family Lampyridae, you've got several shared characteristics. You bioluminesce as adults and as juveniles, and that's pretty unique. Now, you also have a soft, elongated body, and sometimes we call this a squishy beetle. As a child, you might remember squashing a firefly on your fingers, and all that gooey, glowy ooze comes out. That kind of goes back to how fireflies as beetles are relatively pretty squishy. They have what's called a pronotum, or a flattened shield that covers their back of their head. Onto the right of your screen here, this is what's called a pronotum. That head shield is usually generally large and shield-like with colorful markings. And it can be tan, yellow, red, and sometimes we'll have a black spot, as you can see over on the left-hand side of the screen. Now, why that's important is because as firefly scientists, these different morphological features help us identify the species. So, some might have a splotch, some might have a dot, hourglass, and anchor. Now, most fireflies in the state of Texas are about 5 to 20 millimeters long. To put this in context, fireflies that are about 5 millimeters long are about the size of a grain of rice. And if you're 20 millimeters long, it's about 1 inch. To put this in comparison, if you're down in South America, hiking around in the jungle looking for harvester ants, you might come across a 3-inch long firefly. So that's pretty terrifying if you're hiking at night and a 3-inch long firefly lands on your head. It doesn't want to be me. Now, just a brief on firefly anatomy. Fireflies have 2 antennae and with 11 antenna segments. They have a pronotum, which I mentioned before, or a head shield. They have a hard bony plate called a scutellum. And this scutellum can be different colors. Sometimes it can be tan, sometimes it can be black. They have 2 elytra, which protect their wings. And these elytra can be different colors as well. Some fireflies have what's called an elytral margin here, and this yellow region here. And why that's important is that some fireflies will actually lack this coloration here. They've got 2 eyes and 6 legs. Now, this is the difference between a male and a female firefly. Now, off the bat, you might be able to determine some differences. The female has 1 light organ, and the male has 2 light organs. You're probably asking, well, why is that? Now, the reason is that females have to devote a lot of energy to producing eggs, and so they don't really need to devote as much energy to producing light. Whereas males, who are kind of horny bastards, they want to be the brightest and flashiest as possible. So they've got 2 light organs, and in some species, these light organs are very large. I'm going to show you some species from Texas later, and you're going to be like, 1/3 of that firefly is a light organ. It's amazing. This is the life cycle of a firefly. Now, you might have not known this, but fireflies actually exist in the larval state for the most of their life. The fireflies that you see flashing around in the spring that are really fun, they only really live to be 3 or 4 weeks. So it's pretty short. As eggs, it's about 3 weeks. And then when they pupate into adult form, it only lasts about 3 weeks. Now, off to the left of your screen here is an example of a larva that detached from the egg. And you might notice down here is kind of a lighter colored region. So that's a larva that's glowing. And that goes back to those shared characteristics I mentioned earlier, that juveniles bioluminesce as well as adults. Now, onto the lower right is an example of a firefly larva. Kind of looks like a prehistoric kind of crawly thing on the ground. They don't bite, but what they do when they come across a predator like a snail is their head extends and it will inject the snail with this kind of fluid that dissolves it. So it can slurp it up, basically. Up to the left is what a pupa looks like. Now, interesting fact, where a firefly larva lives dictates what it looks like and its shape. If you're a firefly larva that lives in a leaf litter, you're going to look like a leaf. If you're a firefly larva that pupates in between pieces of bark, you're going to be narrow and thin so you can fit between those pieces of bark. I always thought that was a really kind of cool fact. So we've got about 45 kinds of fireflies here in Texas. That's a credible amount of biodiversity. In the United States, there's about 180 species, and that number is growing regularly. Worldwide, there's about 2,400 species. So a tremendous amount of biodiversity. For example, there's a new species of firefly in Iran, for example. Afghanistan has fireflies. They're on every continent except for Antarctica. So Texas has some of the highest biodiversity. The other states that have high biodiversity are like Georgia and Florida, and some of the states that you might think that might have them. Has anybody been to Tennessee and seen the fireflies there? Anybody seen the synchronous fireflies in Tennessee? No? Okay, usually there's one person in there. Okay, so Tennessee has a lot of diversity as well, and they've got about 40 to 45 species additionally. So, how did we get so many species? That's an interesting question. How is it so biodiverse here in Texas, but then you go over to Utah and Arizona, and they've got maybe like 8 or 9 species? Well, let's kind of explore that a little bit. Maybe it's because everything's bigger in Texas. Maybe. All right, so in the long ago, but the not far away, approximately 6 million years ago in the Miocene period, during the age of the dinosaurs, I'm just kidding, that was 65 million years ago. No, in the age of the megafauna, all right, anybody know these guys? The four-tusked elephant. All right, so 6 million years ago in Texas, during the megafauna age, fireflies species in Texas started to take shape during this time. It's a very interesting time in the geologic time of the area that we live in now. It was the climate was a lot warmer, and it was very conducive to speciation and evolution. What this gave rise to was all of our firefly species here in Texas today. Now, curiously, for many years, we thought that fireflies actually migrated down from the northeast. The sense from this was that there's so many fireflies in the northeast that they must have come down all the way to Texas, and that's how they got here. If you ever see fireflies like in Tennessee or in Ohio or New Jersey, there's just tons of them in July, and that large abundance is what common sense-wise, people thought that that's how fireflies got here. Well, what we know now is that DNA research has revealed that that's exactly the opposite. That's really fascinating. There's a woman named Sarah Lauer and a couple other researchers that did this research, and what they did was they looked at the common type of firefly, Photinus pyralis. This is the one that you're going to see in your backyard most commonly. It occurs all the way from southern Texas, even the top part of Mexico, all the way up to the northeast. And they had an interesting question. They said, well, is this the case of what we think, that fireflies came down from the northeast down to Texas? And they basically put that to the test, and they did some genetic research. So they collected fireflies all the way down here and then all the way up to the northeast and started doing their DNA research. And what it turned out was that fireflies migrated out of Texas to the central and northeastern United States. So that's pretty cool. So they came out from Texas up to the Midwest, and then they came out all the way to the central part of Texas. So that's pretty cool. So what does that mean? That means the fireflies here in Texas are the OG, the original gangster of the firefly world, right? So that's pretty badass. And it turns out that the fireflies only recently colonized North America. And in some places, from the research in the Northeast, about 400,000 years, potentially. So relatively pretty recent. About 6 million years ago, Photinus pyralis split with our own unique Photinus concesis, which is our own endemic species of fireflies. Now, for firefly scientists, I like to nerd out on this because it's really quite interesting. You go out in the field and you go, how is this firefly, our endemic species, that looks very similar to this one, but different? How did it come about? So I thought this was really cool and a fun thing to share. The way to think about firefly kind of evolution over the time in North America is that when the glaciers receded, fireflies colonized those areas. So if you ever go up to the Midwest and you see fireflies, remember that the fireflies that are there actually came from Texas. Now, when the fireflies spread out northward when the glaciers retreated, there was colonization events that happened. Population increased, population decreased, and so on. Now, these photos over off to your left here are really cool. These are actually fireflies in amber. And I don't really know the age of it, but on this one, this is a very rare photo, but you can actually see this is a light organ right here, and for millions of years ago. So, what about firefly flash patterns? Well, this is one of the things we love to watch, right? Who doesn't love to watch a firefly flash in the evening? And to most people, the flash of a firefly looks the same as another. But the reality is that firefly flashes are actually different for each species. And that can vary in a wide variety of ways. Temperature is one thing. So fireflies actually flasher here in Texas than they do up north. Synchronous fireflies. These are fireflies that synchronize their flash. Number of flashes. So some fireflies will actually do multiple flashes in a row, and then there's a brief pause. The interval of time between flashes. Sometimes fireflies flash every 4 seconds or 6 seconds, and some are like bam, 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 bam. Time of night that they're active. Some fireflies you'll see in early dusk. Others you're going to see later in the evening, about an hour, 2 hours later into the night. Now, this image up to the left is kind of a great, helpful to kind of illustrate here. You'll notice that there's some fireflies that are flashing in the top of the tree canopy here, and then others that are flashing down here in the grass. And the ones that are flashing in the tree canopy are different species, and you'll notice they have a different flash. Now, can anybody guess why fireflies flash? What's the whole purpose? Mating? Okay, great. It's a form of sexual communication. All right, so I got a question for you. What do female fireflies like in male fireflies? Brighter the better, she said. Okay, anybody else? Bigger the better. All right. All right. I was giving this presentation one time, and there was a woman in the front, and she was like, a sense of humor. And I was like, oh, well, maybe so. Yep. Or big bank account. I don't know. But the reality is they like brighter flashes or longer flashes. There was a woman that did research on this, and her name was Sarah Lewis, and she wrote this book called Silent Sparks. It's kind of a nod to a romance novel for fireflies. So I thought that was kind of cool, and I love the research she did. All right, so I'm going to show you a cool video, and I'm not going to tell you where it's from, but I want you to guess. Someone said Bastrop in Tennessee, and that is incorrect. Houston doesn't have anything like this. That's a concrete jungle devoid of life. East Texas, okay, that's close, sort of. All right, yeah, y'all are in the wrong country. South America, all right. Hey, that's getting down there. I think these fireflies do speak Spanish. Mexico, there we go. All right. All right, so what you're seeing is a rare video that I only get to share in this presentation. It's in Mexico. That's about 2 hours southeast of Mexico City, and a place called Tlaxcala. It's up in the mountains, and it has a population of synchronous fireflies that are very unique. And this synchrony behavior also occurs in Tennessee as well. I know the woman who discovered the synchronous fireflies up there in Tennessee, and one time I asked her, I said, "Hey, Lynn, I'd love to come see the synchronous fireflies. Can I come stay with you?" She's like, "Absolutely not." And I said, "Well, why is that?" She's like, "It's a effing nightmare." And so I was like, "You got to get on the lottery to come see them, and you got to wait for years." And yeah, she said, "Don't do it." I said, "All right, all right." So I said, "I'll go see synchronous fireflies elsewhere." But you could also go to Mexico too. And so this is kind of one of the wonders of firefly flashing is this synchronous behavior. Now, one of the questions I get, and I don't have a lot of time in order to talk on all the reasons, but one of the things that's been in the media a lot lately is, are fireflies disappearing? You might have seen a meme lately where it was, we are the last generation to see fireflies. Has anybody seen that meme? Okay, that's a bunch of bullshit, all right? And the reason is that your children and your grandchildren are going to see fireflies, and as a firefly expert, I'm here to tell you that's great. The person that did that meme was actually somebody that was living in Southeast Asia trying to sell health products. So it was kind of selfish and it was incorrect and not factual. The reality, though, is that fireflies are doing good in areas that they're protected, but they're not doing great in places where there's lots of development. About 14% of North American firefly species are threatened, vulnerable, or critically endangered. In Texas, we've got one endangered and one vulnerable species, and potentially others, but there's not enough data to support it yet. There's about 18 species in North America that are endangered or vulnerable. What we do know is there's a really urgent need in order to protect their habitats. Fireflies are very habitat specific and dependent. Now, I'm going to briefly go through just some of these species. I don't have time to talk all of them, but I really want to go ahead and just show y'all what we have here in Texas. Now, Photinus species of fireflies are the primary genera that we are going to see here in Texas. This is the ones that you're going to see in the fall and in the spring. This is Photinus pyralis. It's the most commonly seen species here in Texas. Now, how you know Photinus pyralis is the J-shaped flash pattern that it makes. It kind of drops down and it flies up. And you might have noticed this before. You'll see a firefly come along and then it just kind of will kind of do this, doop, and then kind of make this kind of shape here that you can see over in the lower left. This firefly flashes every 4 seconds to 6 seconds. In Texas here, when it's really hot, it will flash up to 3 seconds. How we tell the female flash apart is that she'll flash to a male every 2 seconds or so. Now, the cool thing about Texas is that we have kind of our own unique species, or not, it's not a species yet, but our own variant of Photinus pyralis that lacks the black dot on its head shield. You'll see in the image to the right is this firefly here has this black spot here. Well, the fireflies here in Texas, Photinus pyralis, a common species, is kind of halfway to being a new species. And as I mentioned originally, earlier in the talk, we have kind of the OG here. So this is kind of the ancestral form of fireflies, Photinus pyralis, that occurs here that migrated up to the northeast. And it started to change as it did that, either by genetic drift or evolutionary selection pressures, hard to say. This is our endemic species, Photinus concesis. This is in Travis County, and I'm going to give y'all a tip of where you can see the best sightings of this firefly. In Zilker Park on the Violet Crown Trail is where you can see this in mid-May. And this firefly does synchronize its flash in large numbers. Nobody else knows that, so now you do. In fact, I took video of this and I sent it off to a researcher at Purdue University who ran it through a supercomputer who compared it to synchrony in Tennessee and in Mexico. That video I just showed you, They used that video in order to compare it, and it turned out what we had was synchrony in Texas. So that's really cool. Nobody had ever proven that before. Thank you, thank you. Now, the key difference between our endemic species is it flashes every 2 seconds compared to every 4 seconds. Photinus stellaris, these guys are about 5 millimeters long, and they flash about once a second. You can see these all along the Edwards Plateau region. These are one of some of my favorites because the flash shows are really quite fun. They occur in large numbers. This is what a female looks like. Isn't that cool? So she actually lacks wings, and her primary job is devoted in order to laying eggs. And she's got a large body to do that. Now, this is a firefly that occurs below cedar trees in that kind of leaf duff down there. And occurs kind of in the upland area of a riparian corridor. The upland area is kind of that area that's kind of higher up above a river or a creek where it's more wooded. And so cedar trees or juniper play a valuable role in this firefly's life. The leaf litter that comes off of a cedar or juniper is very small. And so if you're a firefly the size of a grain of rice, you can easily get through that leaf litter. So if you ever come across someone that says, cedars are non-native to Texas, well, that's bullshit too. And those trees actually support life beneath them. Photinus demystis, these photos are brand new. All of these photos that you're seeing are all part of the work that I do with Firefly Conservation Research in order to illuminate life history for fireflies here in Texas. So this has taken me over 10 years to find a species, go drive 5 hours to get someone to photograph it, and then drive home. So it's a lot of work. And this one I just got done here in July, and this is what we call our two-step flasher. Kind of a nod to the two-step dance that you might have learned how to dance when you were younger, because it flashes sometimes twice in 1 second, and then it might go another second, so kind of similar to the tempo of a two-step. These are really fun fireflies. They occur, this is one of our vulnerable species. It occurs in areas with a lot of spring-fed or like really consistent moisture. Photurus fireflies are also another one of our species, a genus that occur here in Texas. These are going to see in late May to late June. These are kind of known as our femme fatale fireflies. And you'll notice that these look a lot different than those photos I showed you. These are very erratic. They make all sorts of complex flash patterns. Really fun to catch. And if you ever do get a chance to catch one, it's going to light up in your hand, and it's going to look like just this like light show that's going on. These are the fireflies that eat other fireflies. You might have heard that before. Yeah. So we have them here. This is Photurus bill brown eye. This is one of our endemic species. This is in the frontalis complex, and it is a firefly that also synchronizes its flash in large numbers too. But you got to catch it in large enough numbers. These are some really, these were also seen here in Travis County as well, but you got to be really lucky to kind of see them. And then finally, just a few of our oddballs here in Texas. Look at this guy here. It looks like a fly or something. Now, it does do a little bit of a flash. This is called microphotis, and it's found in the far West Texas mountain areas. So if you ever go out to the Jeff Davis Mountains, out in that area, you're going to see microphotis. And yes, this one off to the left is Pyractomina punctiventris. Kind of a weird name to say, but this is in the genus Pyractomina. It's kind of a South Texas brush country firefly. If you go to the coast this year and you see a firefly, it's going to be in the genus Pyractomina. These guys fly singly and by themselves. And finally, Photinus texanus, and then Pyractomina vexillaria. Now, interesting, this is one of our endemic species. It's kind of got the name, and it flies with the other species that I mentioned before, and it does kind of a 1 second flash. Now, the firefly off to the left there, this is called our amber comet firefly. This one was listed as one of the top 100 lost species last year, or actually this year, by Xerxes. And the reason why is because it's only been seen a couple times since the 40s. And the cool thing about this one is that its flash is really fantastic, and I'm the only person that's ever seen it. So that's a weird thing to have, to be the only person to ever see the only firefly flash of this species. I've been searching for this for years. I've seen it flash, but I wasn't able to catch it. I then found this photo from somebody that took this photo down in Valverde County, where it occurs, quote unquote, and there was a bird researcher that snapped a photo of an interesting firefly on the wall of a visitor center, interestingly enough. Turned out that this firefly lives on the border of the Rio Grande in Texas and Mexico. And and so when I was doing research with this, it kind of helped eliminate doing research in Valverde County because it was right in the area where a lot of migrants were passing, actually. So it wasn't very safe to do firefly research down there. But it also occurs in Comal County, too, and that's where I saw it. So I got to give it the common name, the amber comet firefly, because I saw the flash. And that's one of the things that we're really looking for, to actually find a live specimen of this species. It'd be a find of a lifetime. One of the things you can do to help fireflies is to get a chance to talk on why they're disappearing, but you can certify your firefly habitat. I started this program a couple years ago, and to date we've got about 700 certified habitats across the United States. You can go to firefly.org, or there's going to be a QR code. One of the reasons why this is so helpful is that if you have a backyard habitat, you don't need a large habitat, or you have a large preserve, certifying that habitat is going to help protect it, because it's going to help get that data to the people that are making decisions that protect habitat specifically. We ask a questionnaire when you certify your habitat, and really you only have to qualify for 4 things to be certified. Is providing cover for firefly larvae and adults, increasing your plant diversity. Plant diversity helps increase soil moisture, and we want that for fireflies. Reducing light pollution and restricting pesticide usage. If you can do that, you can certify your habitat. So it's a really worthy program. One of the reasons why I started this is that a lot of people don't get outside at night anymore in order to see nighttime fireflies. And if you go and hike there during the day, you might not know fireflies occur on that piece of property. If you have a sign and the property's certified and you go there, you're going to know fireflies are there. So this is just one more tool to aid in conservation to save habitats and firefly habitats. And then lastly, if you're interested in supporting Firefly Conservation and Research and the work that I do, consider purchasing a sign or consider a donation. This is my contact information, and feel free in order to write it down and contact me if you ever see a cool firefly or a neat place. And then please visit the firefly.org website. Lots of great information on there on why they're declining and like how to build your own firefly habitat or sanctuary and how to get involved in the conservation work that we're doing. This is taking off right now. This has been in the media a lot, and it's a conversation on this is going to increase over time. Now, for the first time, if you're interested, I do have some T-shirts available. I literally just picked them up before this. I've been working on this for months and months. So if you're interested in one of these super cool T-shirts, please let me know afterwards, and I will have to run to my truck and get your size and bring them back. But these are wicked cool. It was a design that I had an idea for, specifically just for Texas. And we're going to be selling these on the firefly.org website, but they're so new that I haven't even gotten them on there yet. So anyway, thank you all for having me tonight. It was a joy to talk to all of y'all, and it's been really awesome. Thank y'all.
All right, who has the first question?
So my wife is a master naturalist, has turned our yard into a urban naturescape.
Yeah.
And about 15 years ago, fireflies emerged.
Okay.
What can I do as just a venal husband to get more fireflies, more species or other things?
Yeah.
She's going to handle all of the leaf litter and all of that stuff.
Okay,
She's
so-
already done all that stuff. I'll go get her a sign. She'll have a happy Christmas.
Awesome.
Okay, fine. But I want more fireflies. What can I do to help that happen?
Okay, he asked about what he can do to help increase fireflies in his yard, or basically tell his wife in order to increase his yard. Oh, you'll help. Okay, so he's going to help. All right, great. Okay, so what I would recommend doing is going to my website. And there's a couple guides on firefly habitat specifically. If you are doing a garden for pollinators or for monarchs, you're already halfway there in order helping out fireflies. You just mentioned that you have attracted fireflies. What I'd recommend doing is putting some logs, some decaying logs in your habitat. Done. All right. All right. You can do what's called a firefly pyramid. And what this is basically, this is new. I developed this year actually from observations in the wild. Get some decaying logs basically, and you want to stack them up into a pyramid form. What you want to do is plant some vegetation that's inside there and around it. And put leaf litter in there. What that's going to do is it's going to invite small earthworms and native snails in order to inhabit that space. What it also does is when you're starting to stack those logs, there's going to be some gaps in between those logs. That's going to allow a firefly female in there to lay eggs, all right? It also lets moisture and water get in there, and then those snails and those earthworms are going to break those logs down over time. And just think, basically, you want to do maybe, the size from your knee down in terms of that log, and then just kind of stagger it upwards to make a pyramid. You can even stack them one-on-one. That's a really great way. I've seen this in the wild, in the field. Actually, fireflies emerge out of these kind of like log structures, and I was like, wow, this is a really great habitat. So that's one of the things I would recommend doing. By planting neat plants around it that you like, native plants, there's a list of native plants on my website that works great. So go on there, find stuff that you like, go to a nursery, plant natives. Yeah, so lots of things you can do. Next question.
Where does the bioluminescence come from biologically? And
Okay.
are there other insects or other animals
Stuff that
or
bioluminesce.
things in the world that
Yeah.
are similar in nature, and what are the similarities and contrasts?
Yeah, okay, so she asked where bioluminescence comes from, and then if there are other insects or interesting critters that bioluminesce. So to answer bioluminesce, that's what got me into this, because I was fascinated by it. I first saw like photoplankton or dinoflagellates that light up in Puerto Rico and these lagoons, and that's what got me started when I was young. So how they bioluminescence? It's a combination of three substances: luciferase, luciferin, and ADP. All right. And so luciferase is the larger molecule, which is an enzymatic catalyst, and inside is luciferin. When fireflies breathe in oxygen, basically they charge up the luciferin molecule. So think about it like this remote that I have in my hand. That's luciferin inside there. So oxygen is what drives that reaction. Once that molecule, let's say, this remote in my hand gets charged up, it releases those photons of light. There's a chemical change in there, and luciferin goes through different changes in the presence of oxygen and magnesium. And that process repeats all over and over again. If you ever take a firefly, get a microscope, or just even like a 10x loop, look at the firefly abdomen, and you'll see it looks like miniature lightning. It's really what it is. And what that is it's oxygen that's going through those photocytes and its light organs. It's really quite cool. Second part of your question, are there other critters out there that bioluminesce? There's a glowing click beetle called Delator physodaris that glows. Has anybody ever seen a glowing click beetle here? Okay, so someone has. All right, yeah. When you're first time in Texas, you're like, gosh, damn, that's incredible. What is that thing that's flying around? You were literally scared? Okay, yeah. They have two light organs on the back of their head, and then one on their abdomen, and they kind of float up, and then kind of have this constant glow. There's also a species called a Fingodidae, a Fingodid, which is also a railroad worm also that glows as a larva. We have what are called fungus gnats as well in Texas that glow, the larva. Around the world, there are other different bioluminescent organisms, but it's pretty rare. And most of them use the similar system in order to bioluminesce. So, did that answer your question? Okay, so I have limited time, but I'll give you the short answer. Okay, all right. So here's the cool thing. millions of years ago, I just showed you those amber photos, right? That's really cool, right? Fireflies shared a common ancestor with that glowing click beetle that she saw over there, all right? That's puzzled scientists for a long time. How did they happen? What, you know? So they wanted to really know. With fireflies, they've gained and lost the ability in order to flash over millions of years. They can see this in the DNA, gain and lost it on certain sites in the DNA sequence, basically. When they lost the ability, what they gained was the ability in order to use pheromones in order to attract a mate. So I didn't show some photos, but we have fireflies here that have feathery antennae, and they use pheromones to find each other. So over the millions of years, they've gained and lost the ability over different epochs in order to flash. Some of these are selection pressures. Some of these, originally, flashing started off as a way in order to warn predators. It was not a form of sexual communication, interestingly enough, right? It was only later, then they're like, well, we got this flasher, might as well use it. All right. Gonna be the brightest and the longest, all right. So, any other questions?
So it seems like the flashing synchronicity thing is counterintuitive to mating, because it'd be like if every guy in the club was doing the same dance move.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, so here's how synchrony works, and it's complex. But basically, the males kind of figured out that you want to be the brightest, right? The brightest male. This is kind of something you see in the animal kingdom, right? Birds of paradise. I'm the biggest. I'm the best. Well, males figured out that in order to attract a female, instead of being at one light, wouldn't it be more effective if we had multiple lights? So, yeah, so it's effect basically males all flashing at the same time in order to be one giant spotlight as opposed to a small little pin light. That's kind of the way that I've thought about how to break it down. They're super reactive, which is the really fascinating thing. It's within nanoseconds that they respond to another male. So it's really quite cool.
All right. Last question. Who is the last question? I know I saw hands earlier. All right. Well, that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all very much for y'all's time coming.